What's up, YouTube? It's Leo. Today I'm not doing a video on martial arts. Today I'm going to do one on cooking. So this is going to be how to make quesadillas. What you're going to need. You're going to need cheese. You're going to need tortillas. You're going to need a knife, good sharp knife. Then you're going to need a cutting board or something else to put all your stuff on as you're working and to put on afterward as well. So maybe a plate if you'd like. You're going to need a comal or a flat pan. Hold on a sec. Flat pan to cook your stuff on. And you're going to need a sharpener of some sort. This is a sharpening stone. This is a carbide sharpener meant for double bevel knives, which this is not. Let's get started. Today I'm going to be showing you how to make some quesadillas. Same way they do in Mexico. And some might say, well, how would I know, right? I'm from Mexico. I was born in Guadalajara, Jalisco, Mexico. And my parents are also from Mexico. And I still have family in Mexico that I have gone to visit just a few times in the last while. And even when I don't go visit them, I still go to Mexico because it's a good vacation place where you don't have to spend a ton of money to have some fun. So, first off, I'm just gonna sharpen my knife real quick because I haven't done it in a few days, and well, I get annoyed easily when my knives aren't exactly the way that I wanted them to be. So if I feel any burrs on them at all, I just go ahead and sharpen them. This is just a King 1000, 6000 stone, and this is a Toron Damascus Santoku. This is just an extra step for those who are spend a lot of time in their kitchen, and they're kind of, if they're anything like me, and they're kind of snobs about their knives and their sharpness and their whatever. But realistically, this is not totally a necessary step. Any knife that's halfway sharp will do, because really we're just gonna be cutting cheese and putting it on some quesadillas. So, but I just thought I'd add this. Yeah, my kid wants lunch, so I asked him what he wanted. He's been doing real good lately in his training, and he said he wants quesadillas. So, also, this is something about Mexican food that a lot of people don't talk about. But oh, look at this GoPro out of the way. It's all very region specific, realistically, and not only just the state, the city, the particular family you talk to. Like, so making food in one particular way is not to say that that's the only way they make it in Mexico, or that making it differently is not authentic, because it's made so many different ways within Mexico that you can have two totally different ways of making something, and they're both technically authentic ways of cooking something in Mexico. But I've seen it a lot of ways. Some of my aunts do it differently, and my mom does it maybe differently from some of my other family members and such. But I'm gonna show you my favorite way, the way that I really, really like it. And I'll give you my reasonings for it. Okay? So I'm gonna use, you can use a number of different cheeses. There are plenty of cheeses that are native to Mexico. Asadero, Oaxaca, and Cotija, and so many other cheeses. But a lot of people, they've been maybe introduced to at some point or another, are quesadillas made of Monterey cheese. And my favorite to use instead of that is mozzarella. This is just regular old Joseph Farms whole milk mozzarella cheese. So, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna cut some slices out of this cheese, and you'll see what I mean. I don't exactly want them to be thick. I want them to actually be really thin, and this helps a lot for the melting process, and you'll see why that's important here in a minute. So what I'm gonna do is I'm not gonna cut straight down into the cheese. like this. I'm not gonna cut straight down into it. I'm gonna cut at an angle. I'm gonna cut at an angle, and I'm also gonna cut at an angle not only in this direction, not this, just this axis, but I'm also gonna tilt my blade somewhat. And what that's gonna do is it's gonna give me a really thin piece of cheese. And you'll see this one's starting to tear a little bit. My knife's a little bit wet still, but that's essentially what I want. That was a little bit extreme, but that was just to show you what I'm talking about. So you see now, this piece of cheese here is real thin. If you see it, it's pretty translucent. So that's more or less what I want. And once my shavings start getting a little bit too big, or it's hard to keep them thin on that edge, on that side, I cut on this side. And I'm gonna do the same thing. Okay? And so I just want thin pieces of cheese. It doesn't really matter if they're big, if they're small, not really important. I just want them to be thin. The thinner they are, the better they melt. So wherever you see the surface of your cheese, you just want to cut a little bit off of that, an angle, or just a couple degrees. You don't want to do a whole lot. If you do a whole lot, you're gonna get this giant wedge where one end is super thick and one end is thin. So you don't want that. Nice and thin. Some thinner than others, but not a big deal. Just pretty thin. Alright, so I've got a fair amount of cheese here. Should make at least a few. And I'm gonna heat up my stove. I'm also gonna heat up my stove for two things. I'm gonna heat it up for the comal, where I'm gonna be heating up the tortillas to cook quesadillas, and I'm gonna be heating up my espresso pot. So there are a few more peculiarities about quesadillas and what's considered authentic and what's not. One thing is here in the States, you oftentimes go to the store and get regular old corn tortillas like this. By the way, you don't use flour, we use corn. And the thing is, in Mexico, depending on which shop you go to, there can be a number of different, not exactly brands, but a number of different types made by different people, and a lot of them being local. Some of them even being the store owners or relatives of the store owners or friends. So they'll be vastly different. But here in the States, you don't really have that. You just you get your choice of like, a few different brands, and then you get to get white corn, or you get to get yellow corn, or you get to get flour or whole wheat flour. So just go with regular old white corn. This is, what is this? Romeros. And pretty much any Guerrero and any of the other brands that you might have seen, I'm sure will be fine. How much cheese do you need in them? About that much. about one regular slice's worth that's only about 1/8 of an inch thick. But you do want them thinner. The thinner they are, the better they melt. And look, it's not totally thin all the way through. It just happens to have a really thin edge here, really thin edge there. This little strip right here is very thin. So that's gonna help a lot in the melting. So I'm gonna get my pan, my comal nice and hot. And I'm gonna put my 4 tortillas on there at the same time because they fit. And if I could only fit one, then realistically, you know, I'd only be putting one. And I'm gonna cook, I'll show it to you on this other one. I'm gonna cook, there are 2 sides to a tortilla. What's up? The video. I'm making a video. You wanna get your Game Boy? Because I think the internet's out. You can bring it out to the living room. So the tortilla has 2 sides, if you notice. It has a somewhat more cooked side. Never mind, Eli, just watch. And then it has a side that looks like it peels up a little bit easier. You've got a rough side and sort of a, I don't even know how you would explain this, a delicate side. So you cook the delicate side first, and then once it cooks, you pull it off. You don't need to cook it a lot, just a couple of browning spots is fine, and you pull them all out. So you want to fold them with these grains here because otherwise they can tear. They have a tendency to tear. And this is also why you cook the inside, and so that you don't have a soggy interior. And it helps to pre-melt the cheese, to preheat the cheese for melting. So you kind of just spread them out sort of in the center, not exactly around the center. However you want to, it's totally fine. And you want it, though, what you want to keep in mind is once it melts, will you be able to spread it to the edges? So I've got that pretty well lined up and pretty filled. And obviously, you know, the cheesier you want them, the more cheese you can add. And then I just throw it on there. I'll grab my next couple pieces of cheese and I'll throw them on there as well. And then I throw it on there. And I just do this with essentially all of them. Rough side on the outside, or what used to be the rough side. Let's see if my coffee's about done. My coffee is about done. I'll shut it off here in a second. See, thick spot, I'm gonna put that thick spot in the middle so that as it spreads, it'll still have plenty of cheese in the middle. My espresso is, it's about done, but I'm gonna wait till it starts to bubble, till it hits air. And all I'm gonna do is put them on there like that with the cheese concentrated area towards the center where most of my heat is. It's there, perfect. Okay, and once it starts to cook a little bit on the outside like this, you can see those are new marks, not from the original marks that were there from purchase. And so there are the new marks. Flip it over. This one's got almost none. It hasn't really been marked up yet, so I'm gonna wait on this one. This one's almost there. My coffee's done. Oops. Nice and hot. This is a Cuban espresso. It's Café Bustelo. Some people like Llave more, some people like Bustelo more. I used to like Llave quite a lot, and started getting on Bustelo recently. It's a little more robust, I think. And another thing I've been doing is double brewing. So I'll make my coffee and then I'll pour it back into the bottom and I'll replace the grounds and then do it again. And it might be a little bit wasteful, but man, is it good. So yeah, look, I didn't do anything to the pan to prep it. Realistically, all I did was clean it. That was all I did. And you can see it's really starting to melt. It should be pretty much melted by now, and I can squeeze it out to any edge that I want. And an important thing about this is that you want the cheese to be hot enough that the fat is coming out of it, essentially. You can see it's oily, and it's really, really melted and stringy, and if I were to hang it like this for a little bit, the oil would fall out of it right onto the pan. That's what you want. It has to be really well melted. Otherwise, if the fat doesn't come out of it, if the oil doesn't start to come out of it, you don't really get that salty flavor that mozzarella offers. And another thing is like pre-shredded or pre-sliced, or I guess pre-sliced is okay, but the shredded cheese, shredded mozzarella that you buy commonly does not melt quite as well, and you won't get that nice oil that comes out of it that really adds flavor to it, separating a good and strong mozzarella flavor from something milder. Something that is pretty common in cheaper cheeses, like if you were to compare, I don't know, Kroger, for example, to Galvani or something, that the Kroger would tend to have a very mild taste. And to the point that, like, it almost makes no difference whether you use mozzarella or you use Monterey or you use any other mild cheese like that, mild white cheddar, for example, because they kind of taste the same. But if you get good mozzarella and you make sure that it melts to the point that it is like oily, soaking into the tortilla, then it's gonna be real good. Look at this, it just like squeezes right out. Nice and easy, right? And that's it. I don't prep the thing with anything. I don't put on butter on it. I don't put oil on it. Nothing. I just clean it. And if I really want to, I can maybe wipe it down with an onion or something to get rid of any grease or oil that might have been on the pan itself. So next time you're at your stove, get your coffee ready, get your quesadillas going. And you can make 4 at a time on most of these, most comales that I've seen. Once again, spread it out, somewhat centric. Thinner edges to the outside, thicker in the center. And don't be afraid of touching the hot pan. It's you do it very momentarily. It's not a long-lived venture. So the rate of heat transfer from it to your hand is usually low enough that you can get in and out without burning yourself. I know at first you might not feel that way, especially if you're doing one quesadilla after another. It'll feel like you're gonna burn yourself, but you get used to it. But I just place them on there like that. Cheese is towards the center. They don't have to stick right away. This side starts to get hot, and so it starts to melt the cheese. I'll flip it over, and then do the same thing on the other side, and they'll be perfect. Perfect, perfect, perfect. And while they're still hot, and while the cheese is still hot and malleable, I like to spread it out so that every bite, every single bite has cheese in it. Look at this. If you bite that outer edge, it's gonna have cheese. It's gonna have cheese. Center is gonna have cheese. The edges are gonna have cheese. And don't worry, I'm gonna wash out the oil on this cutting board here in a minute and then re-oil it. So I know you're supposed to cut nothing but fruits and vegetables on a wood cutting board. This is dark walnut. Real dark walnut, not stained. and just finished in canola oil. So that's it. And then depending on how toasted you like them, you know, you burn them up a little more on the outside, but you don't want to use low heat. You don't want to use low heat. This is like, I heated it up on high and then I put it down to medium once I started going. You don't want it on medium because your tortillas will dry up really bad. And even when you just cook tortillas for your regular food, it's the same idea. You want it hot so that it cooks and burns it a little bit, gives you a little char so that they don't taste raw, and then you pull them out. But you don't want them on there a long time because then they start to dehydrate and they start to become stiff. You want them moist and charred at the same time. So, cheers. You see that? The cheese just poured right out in that corner from me lifting it up. It's perfect. That one's gonna be too hot for me to squeeze right now. This one is as well. As you can see, really well melted. This one's done. This one is almost there. And don't be discouraged if you have to pull some of them off and sooner than others, or flip them sooner than others. It's just sort of the nature of cooking, especially on a flat pan and with things that you're placing on at different times. Not a big deal. Here's the oil. I don't know how well you can see this, but I can get oil out of here. And there's my finger covered in oil. It's exactly what I want. And these things are blazing hot. But the first 4 are ready to eat. So that's fine. Turn it off. My coffee's off, my quesadillas are off. Eli, you ready to eat?
Yeah.
All right. Huh?
Do you know Kakuna?
Kakuna? I do.